Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Josh Parsons, who'll be sitting in for Matt Watson today. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Matt. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good, except for one thing. I am supposed to say that this podcast is brought to you by Fullscale.io. And after 100 and some episodes, it's hard to do because I always say, and we're back. You can even see I've got a huge note to even do that here.
Nice.
So now that we know that I'm not any good at following instructions, we'll get into all the instructions we created for ourselves. But I'll go ahead and introduce you. You are the co-founder and the COO of Backlot Cars. Is this true?
That's right.
All right. So here in Kansas City, you guys have made some noise recently, and we're going to talk about all kinds of great stuff. Looking forward to that. But what is Backlot Cars? What do you guys do?
All right. Well, other than the silly name, we're a dealer-to-dealer wholesale marketplace. So business-to-business solution for automotive wholesale. We do a lot of different things. One of the things that we do is help our dealers on both the buy and the sell side of the marketplace efficiently source inventory and get rid of inventory. We also provide inventory finance solutions for buyers and transport solutions for the cars they buy.
So now, as a co-founder, obviously you and how many other co-founders do you have?
So there's a total of 4 of us.
Okay. Were you guys, you were probably car guys at some point.
2 of us were in the car business, I'd owned a dealership before.
Okay.
Also worked for Mannheim Auto Auctions, which is owned by Cox Automotive. They own Auto Trader. They own Vin Solutions.
They own Vin Solutions, yeah. And Watson, where are you? It's kind of, we never know. Well, we do know when Matt's going to be here, but yeah, Matt's gone to visit our office in the Philippines. So, but yeah, Cox did purchase Vin Solutions.
They did,
and I think technically I think Auto Trader did, and then maybe Cox owned them, but who knows? So,
yeah.
All right, so you had a background in the car industry. Another one of your co-founders did as well.
That's right.
What made you any good business has to solve a problem?
Yep. And
in order for that problem to be solved, most entrepreneurs and founders have experienced it firsthand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we experienced it on both sides. So as a dealer that was a buyer, so owning a small independent dealership, one of the things I saw was the type of cars that I wanted to buy, you couldn't buy those online.
Give me an example.
So if you're wanting to buy a $7,000 or $8,000 car online, the big incumbents, so your Odessas, your Mannheims, these big auctions, they're okay selling cars online that are right off of lease. So they're really good at telling you about the physical condition of the car, not so good on the mechanical side.
Okay.
So if you're buying a $7,000 car.
So those cars are typically a little older, a little more beat down maybe.
Right.
So you don't know what you're getting when you buy that online.
That's right.
It could show up and blow up on day one.
Or it might already be blown up.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's really difficult to make a good decision on what you should pay for a car like that online. So that was one of the problems that we saw. The other problem we saw was there's a massive inefficiency in the marketplace. So right now the status quo is if you're a dealer and you want to sell wholesale inventory, there's kind of 2 places you sell it. You either have a wholesaler come into your dealership and offer you money for that car. Maybe you have 2 or 3 wholesalers, but it's really hard to set a market price when you only have 2 or 3 people bidding on something.
Okay.
The other way is you take it to a physical auto auction, and that car might or might not get put out online. It's usually limited to the physical constraints of who shows up to the auction. And so one of the things we saw was that didn't make a lot of sense. There wasn't too many things left that were being sold that way. You know, the stock market, you watched like Wall Street back in the 80s, you know, you have got all these guys running around the floor of Wall Street, you know, trading tickets for orange juice or whatever.
There aren't even people on the floor of the exchange anymore.
That doesn't exist anymore. So we were kind of like, it's kind of silly it still existed with cars. And you had to wait for a weekly liquidation event for everybody to go buy these cars. And so we said, hey, the ideal solution would be if dealers could sell these cars on their lot directly to another dealer without the auction. So that was where we kind of came up with the idea. And, you know, things kind of evolved from there.
Okay. So, I think a lot of people are not aware of, we know that you get a car, you can go buy it at a dealership, or you buy it from an individual, or maybe someone gives it to you, right?
Right.
Those have to be the three overwhelming ways to acquire a vehicle,
Absolutely.
right? But I think a lot of people just don't really have a strong understanding about what happens to your car. You ever wonder what happened to your car after you traded it in? Now, I do have a little bit of understanding, but it does, like you said, gets auctioned off, or it goes through a number of different things. I've known a few people that would go to those auctions, and they do tell me that, there's a wild fluctuation. Maybe they get a great deal, maybe not, or and you don't know what you're buying either, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't know
You're
what
just buying what you see and hoping for the best, right?
Yeah, you can check the car out. I mean, they do provide some guarantees, but again, you're still
Pretty minimal.
Yeah, it's pretty minimal. But then also you're limited to physically what you can go look at. So with us, our solution was we inspect all the cars, we post them out nationwide, and we have dealers all over the country that make offers on them.
So with Backlot, and you guys know I love it when you're interactive, go to backlotcars.com.
Yeah, and unless you're a car dealer, you're kind of going to be stopped right there because it's limited dealer to dealer only. So
use your imagination.
Yep.
And Josh's voice to guide yourself through the rest of that
don't
presence.
do that.
So, and like you mentioned, there's an issue with it. But okay, so you just said that you deal with inspection, so you guys have to be all over the place then.
We are. Yeah, we've got over 100 inspectors out in the field looking at cars every single day.
So they're just out crawling the world. I mean, obviously you're going to locate some of them regionally or whatever. What are some of the areas you cover?
So right now we're as far west as California, and then the Pacific Northwest, and as far east as Georgia. And we've just made hires in the Northeast. So we plan to be pretty much in all of the lower 48 by the end of the year.
So you guys show up at dealer A.
Yep.
And they've taken in 5 trades over the weekend. And so here's another thing too, is like that dealer is like the cash flow. They have funded in some way what they gave you as a trade.
That's right.
And they need to now. Okay, so I just sold a Ford Raptor.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't clean it. I did a little bit.
Right.
I ran it through like a $5 car wash and like pulled all my shit out of the inside.
Yep.
I didn't do much past that. So sold it to CarMax.
Yep.
Just because it's easy.
How many miles did it have on it?
Like 50,000.
Yeah. So they're going to keep that in retail.
Yeah. And I figured they flip it, but in order to do that, I think a lot of people don't realize what has to occur. Like it has to be detailed, it has to be checked over.
Oh yeah.
Like a whole lot of different stuff.
CarMax is, they charge for it, but they provide second to none reconditioning on their cars. So when you buy a car there, it's been run through their shop and it meets their standards.
So, but not all dealers are equipped or wanting to do that.
No, and even CarMax, CarMax only keeps about 30 to 40% of the cars they buy from the public, like what you did. The other 60%, they're actually the third largest dealer auction in the country, behind the other two that I mentioned, Odessa and Manheim.
Yeah, so I've never heard of those, but I've heard of CarMax.
Yeah. Yeah, so CarMax is the retail facing. So if you're going to sell your car, they're kind of the one that people tend to go to.
Sure. That's why I went there, because so I've sold a couple cars there, but there was a third one I sold a while back that I didn't get the price I was hoping for. The other two, I was like, if they give me above X,
right?
And I was in and out the door, 20 minutes. I took an Uber home.
Yeah.
And then took my other car and deposited the check, and it was game over. And that felt convenient, but there's clearly a whole bunch of stuff that needs to go on the back end. So
so say like it's another dealer that's, let's say a Toyota dealership up the street, and you take a 2005 Camry with 200,000 miles. The Toyota dealership's not going to retail that car.
Well,
so they've got to get rid of it.
Who wants that?
Right.
I mean, someone does somewhere, but that's the car that you would typically buy off of like Craigslist.
Right.
When you're 19 and you're like paying with $20 bills.
Right. And there's, and it runs.
So do you guys help move cars like that?
Oh,
too?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll sell cars anywhere from $50 to $50,000, but a lot of the name Backlot Cars is typically the stuff that dealers want to get rid of.
That's actually a great point. I hadn't really considered that. That is that you're like, hey, you're here to buy the new Benz? No, I don't have that kind of money. Let's go out back.
Go in the
back lot.
Back.
Yeah.
So
the $50 car.
Yeah.
No, but all right. So the $50 car, is that just more about getting it out of there?
Yeah, it's scrap.
That's that's like a trip to the dump.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. I might go to like Pick and Pull or something like that. We're going to pull some parts off of it, and then they're done with it.
Okay, so back to you guys starting this, and you realize that there's some issues and stuff like this. Now, and I'm going to jump a little ahead so we can then go back through it.
Yeah.
But before we started, you're talking about you deal with dealer to dealer wholesale. you have elements of inventory finance, and you deal with shipping logistics.
That's right.
And we're going to travel back through those so here's the thing did you do all of those right away, or did you keep adding these components as the business grew?
No, we actually added them as the business grew. But
Right.
I would say from day one, when, my co-founder and I, Justin, which were it was kind of our idea when we first started talking about this. And really early on, we realized we couldn't do it alone. So I give, your co-founder, Matt, I give him a lot of credit because he probably didn't even remember meeting with us, but we reached out to him to see if he wanted to grab coffee or do lunch.
I bet he does. Did you meet him for coffee?
We met him for lunch.
By the way, he's really good about that, isn't he?
Yeah, it was great.
That's how I met Matt.
Is it really?
I later interviewed him for my book, $1 Million Bedroom.
Yep.
Because he started Vin Solutions, and the $1 Million Bedroom is about a business I started in my bedroom that got big and did a lot of revenue. Matt started Vin Solution in his basement.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
his dad was employee one. His dad still works there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, employee number one, which
That's
is pretty
great.
cool. But I was interviewing him for that because that's how, so many of our businesses start like that.
Right.
I mean, I was at a meeting last night and with a bunch of entrepreneurs talking about an innovation district that KC wants to build. And I said, guys, we got to cater to the army of one, because we were all that army of one
Absolutely.
at some point. So,
Yeah.
but no, I actually met with Matt. I had some questions about Gigabook. It just largely, I don't know. I just, Matt is Matt. He's done it. He's sold a company for $150 million.
Exactly.
Dude. That's a lot. That's a lot.
When we talked to him, it was shortly after he'd sold the company. It wasn't too far after, so I'm sure a lot of people were, trying to get a piece of him and figure out what's going on.
They still are.
But it was cool that he met with us, and I don't really remember much from the meeting other than he pulled up in a Ferrari, and the other part was he told us, you guys have to get a tech founder.
Yeah.
And it resonated with us because we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
We give that advice on Startup Hustle a lot. By the way, if you do need help with your tech, fullscale.io.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've got to say that 4 times. I think I got 2 of them out
You
of
got
the way.
2 in, I think.
I'm working on it, but I try not to make this too solicity. But you talk about solving problems, but a lot of people there's a lot of great entrepreneurs. Okay, I'm a non-tech founder.
Right.
I tell people I write checks, not code.
Yep.
But it's good to have people that are good at different things in your business.
You've got to.
I'm a sales, marketing, promotion kind of guy, and that's the role that I play at Fullscale. And Matt helps with, some of the technological needs. He helped us coin all of our assessment testing and a whole lot of different stuff. And sometimes it just helps to sit down and talk to a guy like that has done things on a massive level. His current company, Stackify, they process 2 billion data points a day.
That's unreal.
I can't even put my arm, what's 2 billion? Of anything. I'm holding a pen. What's 2 billion of these? It's just,
I have no idea.
So it's a lot, but I think, we're going to kind of arrive at what my point here, which is you guys asked Matt to meet, right?
We did.
And he said, okay.
Yeah.
So go out and find people that have done what you want to do,
right?
Or know more than you. Don't ever be the person that knows everything, because then you're just dumb, because you don't.
Nope, you don't. And I would
just
say,
don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Because most of these time people say yes, and it's easy to get people to sit down and talk about themselves too.
It really is.
This podcast proves that point, Josh.
Yeah,
so back to you.
Yeah. No, I think that you're absolutely right. Ask for help. You've got to, if you decide that you want to go, venture backed like we are, you've got to find somebody that's not afraid to just be in front of investors all the time.
And I want to save that. But we'll build some suspense, because you have raised a significant amount of money.
Yep.
You're not the champion on the Startup Hustle alumni, because Sandy Kemper keeps cashing $200 million checks. Another one, the second one.
Yeah, that was a biggie.
Wow, I know. I saw him the day that he got that. It's I'm not supposed to say it. Anyway, so yeah, don't be afraid to ask people. And by the way, I feel obligated in some regards, because so many people were cool to me.
Yeah.
Knowledge is meant to be transferred.
It is.
So, all right. So he advised you pick up a tech founder.
Yep.
And anything else?
That was the only thing that I remember taking away from that meeting that really resonated. I mean, there was other things that we talked about, but it's been 6 years ago, 5 years ago.
Did you ask him to invest in your business?
I think at some point we did. I
I'm
don't know
just
if it was.
curious.
I don't know if it was exactly at that point. And at that point, we hadn't raised any money.
Yeah,
so-
Matt's invested in some different businesses, and some of them are car related. And whatever. I mean, you know what you know.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, and we're going to save the capital amount. It's big. It's big, people. Stick around. Do not change. Do not change to that other podcast. Okay. So with the dealer-to-dealer thing, you guys in a way kind of started like a marketplace.
We did, yeah, absolutely.
And then I would imagine that the inventory, did the inventory finance come next or the shipping?
So shipping came next.
Okay, because a marketplace, if you can't get a product from A to B, your ability or do it easily.
Well, yeah, and it's especially with Amazon Prime, like launching this at the same time people are spoiled by Amazon Prime. Yeah. Like it's tough because we're moving 5,000-pound pieces of metal. I always make a joke. It's our dealers expect the pieces of metal to show up at the same amount of time a pair of Nikes do.
Right. Well, why don't they, Josh?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's hard. You can't.
It's hard. I mean, you
difficult.
can maybe get 9 cars on a truck. They're all not going to the same place. They're all not being picked up at the same place. There's a lot that goes into the logistics, but we do a great job.
So the creation of the logistics side of things, which is tricky, man.
It is
because so our COO, his family used to own a shipping company when we were still back in Indianapolis, and just listening to some of the horror stories. And they were hauling, they had trucks, like big trucks, and in Indianapolis, you get, for that kind of stuff, you get a lot of traffic in and out on the way to Detroit.
Right.
And a lot of the vehicle stuff, and if you do something that stops the line at GM because you weren't there on time or you messed it up, dude, the penalties are insane.
Oh yeah.
Like, you sign a contract, you're going to pay like $1 million. They're going to crush you. They're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, you better have a good
Get
bond.
these bolts here on time. You're right. So, but with that, you don't know when a truck's going to break down. You don't know when a driver's going to do whatever. There's a zillion things that could happen.
Yeah, we've had some crazy shit happen.
Give me a story.
So one of the ones that really sticks with me is we had a customer that bought his first car from us, and for whatever reason, the seller could not produce a title. So we had to back the deal down, which is all part of our terms of use. It happens in the industry, whether you buy a car at auction or whatever. Car was traded in. For whatever reason, the customer that traded it in couldn't get a title. So we had to back the deal down.
And that's a problem. Yeah. Makes it non-transferable, basically, right?
Yeah. And so we, refund him his money, everything else. But it's a real shitty first experience to have that car back down. Well, that happens less than 0.1% of the time where that happens.
Yeah, but you don't want that to happen on the customer's first pass.
Well,
not good.
And definitely not on the second, which it happened on the second. So it's like when it rains, it pours. So
for the same reason?
Same reason.
Oh, God.
And again,
isn't a car dealer on some level isn't there? I would think there's some empathy with that.
There is at one time.
That's
Two times you're like, God, is this, because in his eyes this happens all the time. And it's extremely infrequent. Out of all of our transactions, it might happen a couple times a month.
But
it happened to him.
Murphy's Law dictates that it will happen to the same person, and it will be a new client.
Yeah. So third time, this guy comes back, which it's like, my God, this, I wouldn't have been back, but he came back. Bought a Jeep Wrangler, $30,000 Jeep. The transporter hits an overpass, rips the entire top of the Jeep off.
Nice.
So it was one of those that, that's one of those days where you just go home and you're just like, could it get any worse? But, the guy still buys with us.
I was about to ask. So, by the way, sometimes those, but make it right.
That's what we had to make it right.
Make it right. You make it right. And, the Matt DeCoursey School of Customer Service is accredited in some industries and shamed in others.
Right.
I don't believe that the customer is always right.
No, they're not.
People are full of shit a lot, and people have learned to take advantage of that.
Right. Car dealers don't get that reputation.
I told you I owned a ticket company. We had a guy buy tickets, and he called in, and so our business, we did a lot of work with venues and teams, and those people, they have a VIP type inventory. It's expensive, and they have a hard time selling it a lot. It's not on Ticketmaster a lot, and we had a guy buy some VIP stuff, and sometimes you buy it so you can be the source for it. But we had a guy that literally was vehemently so upset, and then filed a chargeback on us later because he had to stand up at a rock concert.
Oh, that's rough.
I was like, dude, he's like, the customer's right. I'm like, yeah, you're not here.
I saw the Who a few years ago, and that was, I could see that audience. They were all sitting down.
But this wasn't. This was it was a country show, and it wasn't one where everyone was going to sit down all night.
Right.
But yeah, so sometimes people are just unreasonable.
Very
unreasonable.
unreasonable.
Daryl, who's our COO now, had worked at that company too. And he's like, oh, is the customer always right? No.
No, they're not. In this case,
that none of that was that dude's fault.
None of it was his fault.
When you make it right though, and you demonstrate that to clients, sometimes those people end up being your best clients.
Well, and with that, insurance covers those things,
Sure.
but insurance is slow.
Yeah.
And so we ended up writing him a check for the whole price of the vehicle and said, hey, we'll figure it out with the insurance.
At that
later on.
point,
Even
were
though it was his
you
car.
basically funding that yourself too?
Yeah, and we did, but we ended up getting money back from the insurance company a little later. But I don't think a lot of companies would have said, hey, we've got to run it through insurance because that's the process.
The moral of the story is get a shorter transport truck.
Right.
Or just let the air out of the tires halfway.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not a good idea.
Don't go into those 9-foot bridges or whatever it was.
Okay, so dealer to dealer, the wholesale place. Now, are you able to tell me like what kind of volume the marketplace transacts?
We don't really share it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, because we've got a couple of big competitors that are after us, and we're kind of going after.
I normally don't ask that question for the same reasons. I'm like, it's
thousands and thousands of cars.
Sure. Well, that was maybe a better question.
Yeah.
So, that transfer back and forth, money isn't always quick.
No,
it's
and we
not always
handle all the payment processing.
Right.
So we handle payment processing, the title work, all that stuff too that goes in those transactions.
So when you say inventory finance, is this almost like a floor planning kind of finance?
Exactly, like floor planning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we call it our float product to try to differentiate ourselves a little bit, but it's a floor plan product.
Well, I say floor plan because I mentioned that I worked in the music industry. I was in musical instruments.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we worked with like Textron, GE, different companies like that because people don't realize. Okay, so when you drive by the Ford place later and you see this giant place and it's full of cars.
That's right.
Someone had to pay for those, or someone is paying for them, or someone is going to have to pay for them.
Right.
And they're expensive.
They are. And so like in that case, Ford Motor Credit's probably going to be the floor plan company because it's a big OEM.
Well, and that's how they get them out the door.
Right.
Yeah.
But the people that we floor plan are your ma and pa, like the smaller dealerships that are mostly the buyers on our platform.
So, and like I said, maybe everything I've learned from the automotive industry, I may have learned from Matt Watson and his friends, but most dealerships are not like a straight out new car dealer.
No, I would say
it's like 10%. Yeah, it's really small.
Numbers are all over the place, but kind of the number that gets thrown around is there's 100,000 dealers nationwide, and 10 to 15% are new car franchises.
Right.
Those numbers fluctuate all the time. And
sure.
Some of the independents, you don't know, like we have the guys that, might have a dealer's license, only sell 10 cars a year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is that, and when that's come up and Matt pointed this out, that they may count as a car dealer, but they might be that person because they go to auction.
Right.
And they buy a car and then they flip it and they make $200 and they do that once a month. And
yeah.
That's like what they do on a Saturday every now and then.
Yeah.
So, but you don't deal with folks like that's not your.
If they're a licensed dealer, they can be on our platform.
Okay.
But our core customer is somebody that's probably selling 15, 20 cars a month retail as far as the buy side of the marketplace.
So, do you guys facilitate? So, there are 10 million things that people are going to complain about the whole process of buying a car.
Right.
And one of the things that annoys me is like how long it takes.
Yep.
All the papers I got to fill out. Now, I've noticed that's gotten a lot better.
It has.
Over especially the last 5 years.
Yep.
10 years ago, it was bad.
It was brutal.
It was really slow. Like you had to get the whole, oh man, I got to go buy a new car.
Oh, I mean,
that should be exciting and fun. And then you're sitting there and you're tapping. I said don't tap the table before, but you're like, oh, God, when am I going to get out of here? And you're like a caged animal by the time you leave.
And that was back in the day. That was by design too. They wore you out. So I was a finance manager, my first job in the car business, 2005.
Make them wait.
And you're printing everything on a dot matrix printer. That's slow. Back then, before, VIN solutions and all these other.
They were VIN stickers at one point for a similar kind of thing.
Yeah, but your dealer management software, for example, that was all command prompt. Some guys still use that. I'll still go into dealerships and do visits occasionally, and there's a guy that's got an old command prompt screen up because that's what he's been doing for 30 years. But
hey, whatever works. Right?
Whatever works. But it was super slow. I think the process was just wear customers out. And then by the time they got what's in the box, is what they call it, the finance box, they were worn out and they were just going to assign whatever. So whatever warranty, whatever the interest rate was, they didn't really care. They just wanted to get the hell out of there.
But that's changed.
It's changed a lot.
I mean, I think the car industry in general has changed, and I'm that nosy or like chatty customer, like because I'm a sales guy.
Right.
So I'll talk to the guys while we're doing the deal or whatever, and so like, and all the salesmen are, oh man, this has changed. It's getting harder and harder to make any money.
It has
this.
for
and
them.
The margin's tight.
The margin's tight, and that's where we come in.
The internet changed that.
And I think that, wholesale, there was not a whole lot of internet in wholesale, but it was on the retail side. Customers are coming in. Most of the customers, when they go to buy a car, know more about the car than the sales guy.
Sure.
But on the wholesale side.
But they know how much it should cost. They at least are seeing it listed.
Right.
They're like, hey, I see this online. It might be in Greensboro, North Carolina, but it's $10,000. So in that customer's mind, anything above that might be high.
That's right.
But there's also different markets. Like when I lived in Colorado, Jeeps cost more.
Yeah.
It's like it's just a different market.
It is. Yeah. I mean, you have the market arbitrage that exists, but people are still going to search, 500-mile, 1,000-mile radius. Yeah. They're going to look at the cheapest one, and they're going to try to hold everybody else to that standard, which is fine. But we saw on the wholesale side that as margins got compressed for new car dealerships who are sellers and independent dealers who are buyers, they had to find other ways to be more efficient. So that's where we really built this, was with that in mind. Like, how can the new car store get more money for their trade, sell it more efficiently, faster, clear out that wholesale inventory that, like you said, costs money, and then the independent guy, if you go to a physical auction and go run around all day, some of those guys go to 3 a week.
Right.
You're talking 5-6 hours a day at one of those.
And you don't know what you're going to get. You might sit there all day. You might
Right.
do a lot of different things. And then you talk about that wild fluctuation, because when you're selling anything and margins get tight, overpaying for something is kind of ugly.
Right.
Have you ever seen The Prophet? The Marcus Lemonis?
I've not. I know what it is. But
he goes in and tries to fix businesses. And one of them, there was a car dealer, and the guy just had this chronic problem of overpaying. And then, and I always used to I was a sales manager at one point. I said, don't fall in love with your inventory, guys.
No.
Like, it's worth what it's worth.
It is.
And it's worth what someone will pay for it.
Yeah. And you make your money when you buy it.
Right. Sure.
And so with us, it's like, we do try to get guys to buy cars outside of their normal comfort zone. Our average transport trip is, several hundred miles. That's not like the guy going up to the local auction 20 miles away.
Well, in this case, this guy was overpaying for cars, and then he didn't want to correct the issue. So the car's got a market value of $28,000, and it's going down.
Right.
And he's got 32 in it, and sitting there waiting. Someone's going to pay for it. No, they're not. And eventually, it thinned everything out.
Right.
And then they didn't have any selection, and then overhead was expensive and stuff like that. So with inventory finance and stuff like that, how do you deal with that? Because can you prevent someone from making dumb decisions?
You could, theoretically. I mean, we control
your marketplace kind of helps that
with the marketplace
inherently, right?
Right. You control the supply. We know the value of these cars. We can also see how many other competing offers there were, for example, and we know what they are in relation to, Black Book or wholesale value. But you can't always control it, of course. And I think that the thing you have to trust that your buyers, within the kind of the boundaries you set for them, are going to make sound decisions.
Sure.
And then the way that you kind of back off of that is, okay, it's 45 days old, it's 90 days old, so you're paying curtailments to write these cars down, so you don't have as much financed. But
when we talked about floor planning, that was something that would come up, because after in a lot of retail stores, you go in wherever you go, and you're like, wow, this 70% off. They're trying to get that out the door because they've probably had it for a year.
Right.
And now not only is that sitting there, and they've been paying floor planning or interest. So floor planning is financing your inventory through wherever you do it, and you're going to pay interest on it.
Right.
So much like interest and math work, the shorter the better. Get it out the door and move it. But you get to a certain point where it becomes what they call black tag.
Yep.
And now, with companies like GE or Textron, and some of those failed. I don't even know if they're still around anymore, but and this might be why, but they would reduce your credit line by the amount of black tag inventory that you had. Yeah. So it could if you're running tight, because the way they look at that is they say, if you're not smart enough to buy things that are going to sell quickly, why would we give you even more money to buy more?
Yeah, you're digging a hole.
Right.
Yeah.
And retail's challenged right now.
It is.
So, and with that, things change. Any good business that lasts goes through metamorphosis and evolution and change. So the vehicle and car industry is going to change.
It's changed massively. I mean, to your point on turning inventory, I mean, they have a lot of inventory management solutions that are out there now. Mm-hmm. And that is just telling guys, hey, this is what you should sell the car for. This is the market day supply. This is the average turn of this car. This is what the last listing price of the last 5 that sold in your market were. So there's a lot of analytics.
We did an episode on that. I told you with Jason Rice at Lot Pop, and
exactly.
And that business doesn't do anything other than try to help you keep up with your pricing.
Right.
And if you have a lot of cars, that can be a lot.
It can be a lot.
And then also, who's doing it? because so once again, back to the ticket business, it was very difficult for me to let people manually price our inventory sometimes, because sometimes you're like, you got to get rid of this. Like,
Right.
this show is in 2 days and it looks like it's going to rain. Let's dump these.
Yep.
But sometimes people are like, I feel the employees be like, I don't like marking it down because it's your money and not mine. I'm like, it's going to be nobody's money if we eat these.
Exactly.
But that can be really variable. Now, and I haven't been in that business for quite a while now, but their software came in and was algorithmically pricing certain things,
Right.
and a lot of that data transfer and StubHub and, but then the teams teams, venues, and artists got their hands on that data, and then the face value of things changed, because they look at that data and they're going, wait a minute, you're selling for $160, but we were getting 90.
Yeah.
I'm leaving more money on almost more money on the table than I'm picking in.
Right.
Then,
dynamic pricing, isn't that what they call it?
It is dynamic.
Yeah.
Well, dynamic pricing is in ticketing it is,
Yeah.
but they have to base it on something.
Right.
So yeah, and I don't really spend a whole lot of time looking at tickets, but even that's changed too, because normally they would want you to just sell out everything really quickly.
Uh-huh.
But the peak demand for tickets is right when they go on sale, like literally, hey, 10 a.m. on Saturday morning, and then in the days that prior to the event, because some people don't buy things 9 months in advance. Or they're gonna decide if they want to go the day before or the day of.
Right.
And then it made it even easier to buy things, electronic tickets. And I don't know, it really changed a lot.
Yeah.
And the teams really, by the way, I bought Live Nation stock when I started figuring out that they were doing that. And it was at $7 a share. Last time I checked, it was at 45.
Nice. Did you keep it?
Yeah, because they're recapturing their own margin. You could see it, and that's going to equate to profit.
Right.
But so that's the question is, and you look at and we don't have to keep talking about lot pop, but they're just trying to, Jason will tell you, if we can help someone get a car out faster, or get $100 more or whatever, it just makes. And then another thing too is some of it's just convenience, because it's not always it's not always the activity that everyone wants to wrap their arms around. Much like the shipping logistics of getting a car from Winfield, Kansas to here.
Right.
And that was your hometown, right?
It was.
Okay, so there's not a whole lot of stuff coming in and out of Winfield.
No.
So that's a whole nother thing.
It's a difficult place to get stuff to.
So you're the COO. You're in charge of all this.
Right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't handle it.
Better you than me, Josh. This is not I'm not that detail oriented.
No, I give a lot of shout out to our transport team.
I bet.
We've only got 4 folks on our transport team, which is amazing.
Okay,
and
so
we move thousands of cars a month.
That is crazy.
It is.
Considering that they go, I passed it, I drove back from Indianapolis. We went and visited my wife's parents last weekend, and you pass the transports, and I was even thinking about that. Well, there was a truck hauling trucks.
Yep.
So I asked my daughter how many trucks that would be if there were 4 or whatever, and I was impressed that she got it right. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. Not a whole lot going on there.
It is.
So before we get into the moment of this massive amount of cash that you raised,
right?
I want to complete the point about the evolution and the change, because you're looking at a lot of different things. We'll say the major American motor companies. I saw Watson's a huge Tesla guy.
Yep.
And he had posted a link on Facebook that is okay, they're not doing hybrids, they're doing all electric.
Right.
Some of this stuff's going to have a big impact on everything, and then driverless cars, and that's coming.
It will.
It's going to happen.
It will happen.
I'm okay with it, man.
Yeah.
I just drove 8 hours one way and then did it again 4 days later. I would have been cool with just kind of kicking back on that ride.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Some of that's coming and things change, but where do you see any of that affecting you? I think the overwhelming opinion on some things is that the auto industry is going to change. The retail side of it could change significantly with that.
Yeah, I think it will. I think it's all a matter of when.
Right.
It's.
But you also still might buy, if you have a driverless car, you still might go buy the car. You're going to go buy the car somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think car ownership is going away anytime soon.
Sure. No,
there's a pretty cool study that was done by University of Texas out of Austin that it used Austin as the bellwether, for polling people on whether or not they would go if they would have or own vehicles. And overwhelmingly, people over 25 said, yes, we'll own vehicles.
I would.
And
I would. I mean, some people think that there's just going to be this fleet of autonomous vehicles that you're going to get in and out of every time. The thing is, who's going to take care of them? Who's going to clean them? Like, I mean, there's a sense of identity and ownership and personalization.
Well,
and like,
you mentioned you have kids, right?
Yeah, like privacy. My kids tear things up, dude.
Good luck with a car seat in a fleet. You know.
Good point.
You know. So
good point.
I think there'll be car ownership. I don't think it will be, you know, the numbers that we see today, but it's always going to exist. And
then some of it too has to change, like, because you know people are moving into these urban environments where it's not even feasible to have a car.
Right.
And I think that's where things like Uber, but were pretty impactful and disruptive because you know like taxis were expensive and they were sometimes hard to flag down.
Right.
And then you know like in Kansas City we don't deal with this a lot, but if you live in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And I mean New York, not Kansas.
Where are you going to
park?
Right. Those are going to be the cities that are affected first by
the struggle
autonomous
is
vehicles.
real.
Yeah.
The struggle is real, and maybe for the better. Okay, everybody loves this topic. Everyone's chasing it. I was on a call about it before you came in.
Right.
You guys have raised some money.
We have.
I know we built this up. I'm trying to build this up. So we're winning round. So. And this is all available online. You can, that's how I may have read about it.
Right.
But let's talk a little bit about raising capital.
Sure.
And along the way, like, let's try to help people figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I think that the first thing you've got to do is build your team. Whether that's you, and depending on the problem you're trying to solve, if you're the person that can do all those things,
yep.
I rarely see that. We built a really good team. So my co-founder, Justin, he's the best fundraiser I've ever been around or seen.
It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job.
It's a sales job too.
Oh, it's very sales heavy. And
why? Because you're going to hear no a lot.
Right, a lot. And you have to be able to
thick skin.
I've seen him, you know, continue to times where I would have just said screw it and walked away. Like he continues to push at it. So I give him.
It's humbling.
I give him all the credit in the world for that. It's so humbling.
Yeah. Because the thing is until those people write you a check, it's their job to get the best deal out of you. So
right.
Kind of in an adversarial. It's I compare fundraising to what I think that salary arbitration would be in baseball.
Right.
Like they want you on the team and they want to give you a contract and they want to tell you enough bad shit about yourself that you'll accept a lower price, but not so much that they ruin your confidence and you're going to suck next year.
Yeah, I think we've experienced a little bit of all of that.
Yeah.
And then, you know.
But once you got some funds, it made it easier to get more.
It makes it a lot easier to get more.
So where did that start? Because you had a seed round at one point,
right.
And that was significant.
Yeah. So early on, the three of the four of us actually used our own money to kind of bootstrap the business for the first year. Then we got into an incubator called 500 Startups out in San Francisco.
I'm familiar. Yeah, that's cool. Did you actually go to San Francisco for it?
So Justin moved out there full time. So that was kind of when we made the decision that Justin was going to be the CEO, because I had 2 kids back here, and my wife was like, "You can go back and forth. You can go visit."
Dude, these are the things you got to deal with.
You've got to deal with it. And I was still, we were still trying to run the company here because we were inspecting cars at dealerships and trying to sell cars here locally too. And there was basically 4 of us.
And you're still headquartered in Kansas City.
Right.
Much like Fullscale.io.
That's number 3.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
See, now I just paint that up on the outro and we're good.
So after demo day, we were able to procure more funds for the seed round. Ended up raising close to $4 million in the seed round, which was instrumental for marketplaces. Are very, very hard to build. It takes a lot of money, especially, you know, outside of we're probably the marketplace that has the largest order value of any item that you could think of is cars. I mean, you know, there's not really home marketplaces, so to speak. Like,
can we talk for a second about why marketplaces are hard to build? Because a lot of people come to Fullscale and they have a marketplace that they want to build, and I've had experience with this. And it's because when you first build it, it's empty.
It's completely empty.
And just because you build it does not mean anyone's going to show up or care. And much like a Saturday night at 11 o'clock, if you walk into a bar and you're having a good time and there's no one there, you turn around and you walk right back out.
Yep. They could have the best drinks on the planet, but you're not going to stick around.
It is the empty market problem, empty marketplace problem. And, you know, in order to fix that, you either have to spend a shitload of money to promote it, or you got to give whatever it is in there away, or it's whatever. So how did you overcome that?
So it's pretty crazy. So we're going to new car stores and we're walking in and saying, "Hey, here's 2 guys that we did sales at Mannheim, but trust us, our checks are good. Like that's a tough sell, right?
Yeah,
Especially
sure.
when you're going up against billion-dollar companies that are already have their business.
Right.
So we stuck our neck out. We said, hey, if you guys sell cars on our platform, we're going to go ahead and cut you the checks day one, even if we don't have title. So we kind of flipped it back on the customer.
Speed the money up.
Speed the money up. Like, hopefully you don't cash it till the title comes in, but you can cash it like at the same time you send it. You have it.
You're not stuck waiting for me to. This check's in the mail, dude.
Yeah. So
that
was
guy
like,
that you don't know.
Not too many people in the car business are putting and there was times where we had close to the money we had out in checks, and we're kind of hoping well, hopefully cash flow wise things clear when they're supposed to clear, and you can't. If we would have bounced one check to any dealer, it would have been
game over.
It was game over.
Game over.
So we took a huge risk.
Reputation management is rough there. Like at Full Scale, we did the same thing. Like with some of that, and I was telling you before we started. Like, I mean, look, if you're listening, every business has this problem. And by the way, we're not even to the big part of the money you raised,
right?
And that can still come up. Because cash flow is the lifeblood of your business, and it's difficult to predict when it comes in sometimes.
Right.
And you know what? Sometimes people, they fail.
Yeah.
Business goes out, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, shit, that's a lot of money. How much do they owe us again?
Well, and fortunately now we have, in addition to all the money we've raised, we've got credit facilities that are backstops to handle daily payment flows, because we have, millions of dollars a day going through in value of cars.
Yep.
So.
And when we were talking, that's what Sandy Kemper's business at C2FO is. It's basically accounts receivable financing.
Yep.
And, like they're dealing with, like, you look at like Costco.
Yeah.
Costco doesn't buy 5 from you. They buy 5 million.
Right.
And now, there's just like, it's on both sides of everything. Okay. So were you having problems filling up the marketplace before the money, the seed round, or
because
is that with the seed round fixed?
So early on before the seed round, we were, we had the idea that this was going to be a subscription-based marketplace, and that was a horrible idea. So we pivoted from that really, really fast. Went to transactional.
Why was that horrible? Because it didn't give any preference to someone that bought 1,000 cars as opposed to someone that bought one?
Well, there's part of that. We were just trying to figure out the logistics of how things work, how the inspection looked, which iteration of the inspection our dealer's going to trust the most, but then also not spend days trying to figure out, what's in it.
So you guys take is it transactional?
Yeah, so transactional,
which is scalable for the dealer. Like if they don't have to if they buy 3,000 or 3, it's
well, and that already exists, right? If they buy a car at the auction, it's a transactional fee as well, or anywhere else. So they kind of are already used to that. You just want to provide more value than the incumbents. And I think if you can do that, you can get people to start to kind of get that flywheel spinning in the marketplace.
But what are a couple? I think you hit on a very important point there. What are the definition of providing value is different.
Right.
It can be convenience.
Yeah.
By the way, do not underrate that.
Yeah.
Like I that's me. I will pay more for it to be convenient.
Absolutely.
Because I'm impatient and I got other shit to do.
Yeah, we want transactions on Backlot. We want dealers to be able to hop on there and see. I'm looking at a car. I know if I'm going to make an offer, I know exactly how much transport's going to cost. I have a range of how many days it's going to take for the vehicle to show up. And I know pretty much what I'm going to spend reconditioning that vehicle from day one. That's how we want them to be able to make those decisions. So, we kind of talked about Amazon a little bit earlier, but it's that people are used to buying things that way. And so we try to, replicate that style of buying as much as we can.
Okay, so you get the marketplace full.
Yep.
You're providing value. Another round.
Yeah, at that point we were only in 3 or 4 states, so we were kind of like Missouri, Kansas. Our growth strategy has always been grow from the middle of the country out. So we were very lucky.
If you can't be good where you're at, you're probably not going to be good.
Right.
Is that fair?
Right, and with the marketplace especially, that's with vehicles, it's very important to have geographic proximity on some level.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's come up because in Kansas City, we're here in the middle of the country, which is, some people are like, Kansas City, you're the 25th biggest market. Dude, we actually have a geographic, there's a lot of logistics and transport stuff. We're in the middle of the country.
Yeah, yeah.
It's half as far to California from here as it is from New York.
That's right.
So that worked out in your favor.
It worked out in our favor. You've got a big open space in the West that you kind of have to jump over out there. But otherwise, these tangential markets, like rolling those out, have made a lot of sense for us.
So the next round was?
Next round was, our A round is roughly $8 million. And that was kind of money that was going to allow us to prove that we could actually scale this thing outside of 4 or 5 states.
Okay, so that's crazy. So think about that. And this is what's funny. It's because I had to talking to venture capital people and investors. It's kind of weird. You're like, I need $8 million to prove that this will work.
Right.
That's what you just said. I mean, on some levels, not that it won't work regionally, but
right.
that it will scale and go somewhere.
Right.
And they're cool with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sure, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I think if you have the numbers to support it, and you have the team, at that point for an A, that's kind of what they're looking for.
But people that are listening right now are going, wait a minute, did I hear that right? But it's true.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, even startups that have done nothing, if you have a founder that has a history of success, I mean, they'll show up, they'll be like, look, I need $4 million to figure out if we can get one user.
Yeah. And
some people will take that bet.
They will.
Some people don't.
Yeah, it's before I got into this game, that was just crazy to me. But
that's my point. It seems weird until you start because if you hear that, you're like, no way, I couldn't even get $10,000 to start this, and someone's getting $4 million. Well, but those are people that are proven.
Yeah.
I mean, I say the investors like the jockey or the horse. If you get both, you're in pretty good shape.
Right.
But that still doesn't mean you're going to win.
No, it doesn't. And I think one thing I want to be cautious with and kind of let people know is the amount of money you raise is not a definition of success of the business.
No,
it's
sales,
something that it's
revenue.
Exactly. Sales, revenue, transaction. How much are you disrupting whatever you're trying to disrupt?
God, will you just say that again? Because
it's
important. I think startup founders are so obsessed with raising capital. You should stop and sell something too.
No,
because that's what validates your concept.
So it's something that we never really wanted to put out there. A lot of the people that invest in us at some point in time want us to put it out there because it's good for them, and there's times when it's good for us as well. When we closed our Series A round, we actually didn't do a press release for almost 6 months.
Sure.
Nobody knew we raised it. Because we just couldn't see a point. We wanted to be that underdog in the business. We wanted to take people by surprise, and that was never the validation for us.
Well, that's a signal flare. Yeah. I mean, there's people that are looking just for that.
Right.
I mean, when I started Gigabook, there was a signal flare because a guy who was into it had purchased a different company for $400 million. And I was like, okay, there's something here.
Yeah.
And it was, then the problem with that was, well, once that signal flares up, someone's got a big head start on you.
Yeah.
So you got to keep that in mind too.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the big one.
Right.
The big one.
Yep.
So at this point, I'm guessing that raising money is actually becoming a little easier.
A lot easier.
Because you've got money behind you,
right.
And then you start getting to the point where, okay, you maybe have enough here that even if you do fuck it up, there's something salvageable there.
There is.
For someone else.
Right.
So putting a large amount of money in and really making it grow makes sense. And we want you to get it right. But it sounds weird because this is a large amount of money, but on some levels, you've become a much safer investment at this point.
Yeah, I think the more money you've raised, the more that people do see that it's a safer investment. And I think they see that there's, to your point, there's a lot of different ways at that point when a business gets to that size that it can go. And then also you're also proving that you can scale something nationwide, something huge that's going to disrupt an industry.
Sure.
So yeah, that was a.
And how much was that?
That was $25 million.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so that was a big one.
Yeah. So, and that was recently, right? Was that last year or was that this year?
This year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Being 2019 for those of you that are listening in the future.
Yeah, and that one went really, really fast. I mean, it was just the process happened fast, and I always tell people raise money when you don't need it.
Boom.
So.
And I think a couple things, and you're far more of an expert on this than I am, but also don't wait until the last minute.
No.
I think people do that a lot. They're like, I'm out of money, but I'm going to go raise it. I'm like, what's your runway? They're like 5 weeks. You're fucked. Just close.
Right.
You're done. Because, the thing is and why? The question is why? Well, first off, there's a lot of people out there that are looking for capital, and there's a finite amount of capital.
Yep.
And the people that are giving out the capital have to try to they get a lot. They have infinite options.
Right.
There are literally infinite numbers of places
really
where you can write in an investment check, and obviously some are better than others. But if you want to stick around as an investor, you got to wait for your pitch.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's
were some of these investors on as these tiered down, were these different people, or were people coming back to the well?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So the leads of each round were different. A lot of the participants throughout the rounds were the same.
So $25 million is a lot, but there are even some funds that won't write you a check smaller than that.
Yeah. There's especially in a B round. I mean, that's I think a lot of them are looking, depending on what percent of the company they have, that they want to own.
Weirdest thing you'll ever hear the first time you hear it is, well, we don't write checks less than $10 million.
Right.
You're too early for us.
Yeah. Yeah, but if
well, why is that? Well, we don't do checks for less than $10 million. You're like, what? To who? But that's the way it is. But the question's why. But some of these funds have $500 million in them, and they don't want a bunch of $1 million portfolio items to have to deal with.
No.
Right?
No, it's it just, the limited partners don't want to get that many updates too.
Yeah. So. And then there's some other things too. It's like you actually mentioned that you're talking about like LPs and stuff like that, but and this was something that I wasn't really sure about, because institutional investors don't want you to be like an LLC.
Right.
The reason why, they don't want a K1.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They'd like literally, and that is literally saying, I don't want you to make money because I don't want to have to track it. I want it to stay in the company, or I want to do. But you need to know that as a founder, because you want your objectives to be lined up with your investors.
Right.
And not, because if you're like trying to set something up, if you're expecting to take money off of the table as the business becomes profitable, certain types of investors they don't want that.
Yeah.
They want it all going back in, 100% of it. And so you mentioned earlier, you're like, I got a wife, I got kids, stuff like that. Like, you have to have some forward thinking about that, and not just say, okay, the money's there. But that's weird. So, and I always like to keep it real here. Like, what was it like to cash a $25 million check? I know it wasn't all in your bank account, but it's 25. You wake up one day and there's $25 million in your bank account.
There's $25 million in your bank account, and
you had to at least look at that and go, "Wow, that's pretty cool."
I did. I don't know if it's still sunk in, and we've really tried to stay really modest with things. I think as a founding team, we were, before we announced that we raised that round, I think when we were looking at pay throughout the company, we were like the 27th, 28th, and 29th and 30th highest paid people in the company.
Yeah.
So that's what we live by. Like, we practice what we preach. It's like, stay humble.
At some point, though, you got to cash some checks too.
Right.
Which is okay.
Right.
I mean, at that point, and I don't have any interest in asking you about your personal situation, but as these things stage by too, as also as an owner, where you get the ability, like, if you're trying to raise a seed round, don't try to be clawing back half the money for yourself. Like, that's just not going to go over that well. Like, and I hear that a lot. People are like, well, I want to sell 30% of the equity, and I want to keep 15% of that money for me. And that's not what investors want to hear.
No, I mean, we were,
but it's perfectly normal on the way as things move down the line.
I would say,
it's
typically
it's a lot more reasonable to request.
Yeah, like B or later, a lot of times people will take a secondary.
Yeah.
But for us, it was, we took our A, and we just never even had time. We were so busy. We didn't give ourselves a pay raise, even though we said we were going to. And, so like a year went by, and we were like, oh, shit, we were going to give ourselves a raise a year ago, but we didn't do it.
I mean, when you're busy, it is often a lot harder to spend money.
Yeah.
Because you're actually busy doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And I think at some level of success, too, you're just kind of like, all right, I mean, this is a scorecard now.
Right.
This is just like, hey, you got it. And, Matt will talk about that. I'm not going to pretend to be at that kind of level. But, and just also like, one of the things that Watson will talk about is the sale of Vin Solutions and how anticlimactic it was.
Right.
Because it's like all this stress and like everything is like, is the deal going to go through? And then it's done. And it's just really kind of quiet.
Yeah.
And like the next day, like you wake up and there's like just like this ungodly amount of money in your bank account, and you don't work where you used to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
he did for a while after that, but still, like,
kind of on that same level, like when you're raising money, you go through and you raise these rounds and you see these big checks going into your bank account, like there's kind of some anticipation before everything closes. The financing docs are all signed and all that.
Yeah, I think people don't understand, though, that that's not, like I said, that's not in your bank account.
No, it's the company
and by the way, that can actually be more stressful because you have this like ridiculous amount of responsibility. Like, people are expecting you to perform.
If it's not more stressful, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are people that are, these are smart people that are going to ask you very direct questions.
Right.
It's really funny, too. Like, why aren't you spending this money faster?
Yeah.
It's the whole fundraising process can be so backwards.
Yeah.
So backwards. You're like, wait a minute, you don't want me to make money? No, we want you to make this as big as fat as you can now.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's
I don't
a
want
balance
to hear
to that.
about your 4-year plan to spend this money. What are you going to do to spend it faster? Fail fast, fail fast. So
yeah, there's some of that. I think you have to choose your investors wisely, and I think we've done a really good job.
they're
of
your
that.
partners,
We've got-
man. They become your partners, and you have to, like, I don't know. The funny thing, I'm so transparent and candid because when it comes to this kind of stuff, because I just assume if you have $10 million in your bank account that you are smart enough to figure it out anyway. So I'll just tell you up front.
Yeah.
These are all the things that are wrong with my company. They don't expect you to be perfect.
No.
Like, they're giving you the money to help you fix your problems, make yourself awesome, and do it faster.
No, and it's refreshing when if you have a board that you can walk into a board meeting and say, man, last month it sucked.
Oh yeah.
This we didn't do this and this correctly.
This is what we're changing. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to fix it right now.
Right, and having smart people that you can bounce those ideas off of and get ideas on how to fix things or how to move forward.
And those people understand it. Like what they don't want to hear is that same meeting 4 times later where you have just continually made the same mistake.
Right.
All the way up to it.
Or where it's all sunshine and roses and it really wasn't. They don't wanna hear that
that's
either.
why I said the candor. Like, just be honest and upfront and like transparent.
Yep.
And like, because, well, first off, you're going to lose your credibility if you're not.
Right.
And then, like, this is, I mean, who knows, dude? Maybe you have a $200 million round later. I don't know, but you can't burn those bridges on the way to that.
No.
It's important. So, okay, if you get a chance, go check. Well, you said there's not too much to the website. Google Backlot Cars.
Google Backlot Cars. We are hiring, so that's always
there
good.
You go.
We're
Where?
looking for folks, mostly here in Kansas City.
Okay.
We do have some sales folks kind of sporadically, different places throughout the country. We're still hiring, some up in the Northeast, but most of it here in KC.
Cool. Well, hopefully someone's listening to this that sells cars and goes and checks it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, Josh Parsons here with Backlot Cars, co-founder and COO. You guys are definitely tearing it up and doing meaningful stuff here in my hometown. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
See you next time.